Welcome back to Boozy Browsing, where we cut through the buzzwords, pour a glass, and get real about what actually works in digital media and publishing. I'm Matt.
And I'm Meeky. Today we're tackling a myth that just won't die in enterprise world, that enterprise means better. Or to put it bluntly, bigger agencies always deliver better results. So with that, we are trying to kind of figure out what our opinions are on this topic. And while we're drinking, my drink of choice, actually I'm drinking the cheap Brody level. I just pour wine in a giant glass.
That's quite the wine glass there.
I broke my wine glass.
Those don't break as easy. I'm going with, I think I've done this before, Odell Brewing, and it's Old Dudes Stout. Because, that's what I am.
I pre-poured it. I think it was a Buddha box. I got one of those box wines because for some reason, for white wines, I like it not sweet. And I finally found a box wine that's not sweet. And whereas, like, if I get all these other more expensive and the bottled wines are so sweet that I don't really like. Yeah. So I decided to stick with that. And I was like, no, I have
this. So you got like boxes in your fridge of wine now?
I just bought one. I want to be a little cautious of it.
You can always go back for more.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I have to make the effort to go get it, so.
That's true. Yep. It slows you down.
Yep.
It is almost Friday, which is almost Saturday.
Yeah. So we are starting to kind of get.
So we're talking about enterprise and bloat and why a small agency like us would complain about big agencies, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. So like to kind of say about the formal question is that enterprise doesn't mean better, it means bloated. So it's like there's like a myth of bigger agencies always better, especially like enterprise people seem to think that way, but that's not always true. And that's so.
Yeah, I think if you talk about like the enterprise approach also, like I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and they're assuming that big companies, basically they were saying like big companies must have this all solved and whatever because they're enterprises. I'm like, no, they just have bigger problems. Like the problems are the same but bigger, basically. And their approach, depending on the enterprise, like if they're full on enterprise approach for everything, it's like, yeah, we got to do this and then this and then this and have 15 people doing all the things, which end result may or may not have like be done, finished, whatever, but everything's going to take longer. You're going to have more churn as far as like back and forth, and it's going to just, I don't know. That's my opinion. Like I've seen a lot of large companies work efficiently, but a lot of large companies also just have so much bureaucracy and bloat.
Yeah, that's very true too. Like especially there's too many processes involved, and sometimes they're not all efficient. So there are processes that are needed. Like I don't mean that there's all bogus, but sometimes processes get in the way to get things done, and then that's not always efficient. And it seems similar thing with like even when I remember from like coming from the corporate world to going to a little boutique shop and startup, like there's a huge difference between the speed of things going out. There were some things that I missed. I think I brought that up with the smaller companies too, but like there are some processes that you kind of still want to put it in, but that doesn't have to dictate everything. But there are overheads that actually are there. It's kind of causing the inefficiency everywhere. So you just need to find the right middle ground for it.
Yeah, and I think if you like when we talk about enterprise like agencies or whatever, right? Like the larger agencies, I think what they get, like there's benefits to them, right? Because they have the process, they have the documentation, and I think a lot of companies like that when they need it to maybe get approval up the chain or whatever, But lean and kind of mean is you're going to save time and money if you want to get it done quickly and it's still done correctly. So there's a time and place like for large and full documentation and full like oh, this is everything we're going to be doing in the next 9 months versus just doing it in 3 months. Um, if you don't need the approval of upper management, let's say.
Right. Right. Yeah, and then a lot of enterprise companies too, they kind of operate in a department level too. So they don't
Mm.
necessarily have to go all the way up to the chain. It's like it's kind of overkill sometimes. And then some of the decision makers might not need to be going the ladder like that. And then those kind of cases, you want to make sure that it's quick and efficient. Um, I know I'm gonna probably say efficient about like 100 times, but that is really what the best word to be.
Yeah, we should be efficient about our efficiency words.
Yeah, and then it also efficiency also ties into the cost, and then the cost is essentially the money is what people really worry about, like time and money, like that's pretty much what really is one of the biggest factor. So if you go into the whole chain of bloated bureaucracy, and obviously that's like something has to give.
Yeah, yeah, but I think we also have to look at like there's while we could talk about how it costs more, it takes longer. There's obviously benefits, right? Like we've been on projects where there is no documentation, there is no bloat. It's just everyone figures out what to do and it gets done, and then you end up with a product that has no documentation, has no like true roadmap, and no one really knows what was built half the time. Like walking into those projects are sometimes a nightmare because it had no kind of guidance, um, and it just got built like super cheap.
Right.
So so there's definitely some benefits to both. Kind of going lean, but if you go too lean, um, it's going to be miserable long term maintenance and things like that.
Yeah, and especially like some we count this a lot that there are no processes on development workflow when they try to deploy something, and that just goes chaotic very very quickly. So like these processes are needed and then needs to be in place, but sometimes these just
Yeah.
need to be reviewed per project and per client basis to make sure that it fits to their needs. It's like you don't need to put everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm trying to think of what else to like talk about, like specifics around it, because it is more about like just general bloat and inefficiencies around because it's not always like it's sometimes it's too many people. I guess that would be one way of putting it. Like there's too many people, too many decision makers um, that are requiring or adding to kind of the requirements of the documentation versus there's requirements for building and then there's requirements that were developed for approvals for people to understand like what the site or what the product is supposed to be. um, and once you get beyond that around like the minutia of things, it's like this can be handled later sometimes too. Like some people want to do like design and then develop an entire site to go live with that should be done in 9 months, but you could have something live in 2 months or 1 month that's getting the user base generated.
Yeah. It's a character. So it really depends on the project. It's like everyone says that, but it really depends on the project and what you're looking for, what the client's looking for. If they want something kind of like a proof of concept to make sure that it's viable, then you want to be as fast as efficient as possible. But if you want to build something solid and just kind of put thoughts into it, like the sunlight hybrid of waterfall to agile, then yeah, you need to make sure that you have all this requirements and then just kind of testing QA process and all that stuff in place to in order to be more efficient that way.
Right.
Because sometimes having all those documents and processes up front saves time because you don't want to kind of scramble everything at the end to kind of test, and you're going to miss a lot of things, and it's just going to double the effort for development and QA and fixing everything and rolling out things and then planning things.
Yeah. So what was your experience, or when was your last experience working on like a bloated large enterprise project with an agency that's doing it that way? Do you remember? You don't have to name names, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the last one, but I just remember like one of them. It just well, so there's so many documents and requirements. It just I don't remember how long it was. It was so long that the product owner or the project manager didn't even review the entire thing.
Yeah.
It just document it's there for the document's sake, but it wasn't reviewed. So when they were broken down the tickets, they're not really captured. But even some of the ones, the tickets that are broken down, it was so long. All the details are way too long. We should have been broken down to further smaller tickets. So like the developers weren't even reading it, and then even the QA person wasn't even looking at it to make sure that they put the right QA script. So
Yeah.
it just ended up missing like a lot of requirements, and then just kind of everything gets delayed. And I remember going in and just kind of spend like nights just reading through the entire thing. Took 2 days, and it was not even necessary. And when we actually went to the client who initially wanted the site, they weren't even aware of these features that they put in. So it was just so convoluted because they were just following the processes of all this documentation. It turned out that half the things that the client didn't even care or didn't really know.
Yeah. Can you
But
imagine how? Because I know that was pre, like humans wrote that documentation. Well,
yeah,
I know that. I know the ones you're talking about. Like, can you imagine what it's going to be like on an enterprise kind of large? When I say large scale, like we work on large scale all the time. That's not like this, but like a large scale with requiring all these documentation, and then all that requirements documentation is written by AI, basically. Like some product manager asked some questions. It created all these requirements. Like, I'm not reading all this stuff.
right.
Or if someone got a review of it and it was just another AI getting a review of it. It's like,
Yeah.
how much like specific documentation is going to be written in there that someone's going to build or someone's going to ask an AI bot to build,
Mhm.
and no one's going to even know it's in there. Like, I'm not a doomsday thing. Like, this is just like this is the future of these large scale projects that are they were already too big for people to review all the requirements because people didn't have the time. Now we have people that didn't have the time to create the documents, get created by something else that will then be reviewed by other bots
Mhm.
because people didn't have the time to read the documentation.
Yeah.
And then developers that didn't have time, by saying didn't have time, they were given these other tools to use so that they can't use all the time. They're
Yeah.
going to be building all the code based on the requirements that no one actually read.
Right. Or even validated.
Yep.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
reading is one thing, but
Well, then there's going to be a QA automation that's going to be written based on the documentation,
then
right?
you roll it out and it's like something different.
Yeah, I mean, the first time a person's going to look at it is when it's either public or hopefully when they're reviewing it if they have the time, right? Because there's going to be something else that's going to review it before then.
Yeah, that's like the
Um,
worst case scenario, but I'm sure
it's
it's
far
not,
off.
yeah, not too far off, especially with all this like kind of like testing phase of AI because I don't it's not fully there yet and people start using it and I feel like this
Mm,
is that time that you trust it a little more than you need to because there still needs a lot of human supervision and every step of the way if even if you're using AI
yep.
but you just kind of bluntly trust it and sometimes it's like and then you probably pay the price later on when everything is already published. I mean it's not that you can't fix it, it's just websites like at the end of the day you can always fix it but it's just gonna be doing the work twice just to make sure that you're doing it right at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we kind of like derailed into the AI, but it's like it's a topic that it's a concern, and it's also a thing that you need to really be aware of right now because like as there's more people start using, and there's a lot of different AI tools that you can use really easily, free and paid, and it's not that expensive.
Well, I think it just magnifies what used to be, and that's why I brought it up. Like when we talk about these enterprise kind of projects or companies building it or defining it, right? Like you said, like you didn't like it took days to read it. Most people didn't even read it. The client didn't even read it from the other agency. right?
Yeah.
Like now, like all I see is all this content being generated by AI, essentially, right? And it's getting like people are reading even less of it because
Yep.
they're just assuming that it's going to be fine, or they'll
Right.
get a review like, give me a synopsis of this requirements doc,
Yeah.
and then it's going to skip things.
Yeah.
Um,
And they do. Like I had that experience too, because like I was just kind of lazy to read the entire book, and I was like, can you just summarize it and give it to me? But it summarizes based on their assumption of what's important, not necessarily what will be important for me. So unless you really define it, which takes time too, it's gonna miss.
yeah,
So so
yeah.
oh. So what is our opinion on this? I mean my thoughts on this, actually, I hate to say it because everyone says it, but it really depends. And then also, you have to find the right middle ground for this. It's not always bloated to have like an enterprise agency to come in a bigger, but bigger doesn't mean necessarily better, but lean isn't also better. You just need to find the right fit for that depending on the project or depending on the client.
Yeah, I don't have a like I have a similar opinion, I think, where there are very specific use cases where it can help. I don't think it's ever is going to be. We are obviously a small agency, but I've always liked to work like lean. I've always like cut out the extra steps. So even when I work on these larger ones, I'm like, I don't want to do all the extra steps. Someone else can. Like, well, we'll bring in the extra people for the team, but we're going to get the job done. Not quick and dirty,
Mhm.
but the way things that need to be done are going to get done. And while everyone's figuring everything else out, we're going to get all the stuff done that's supposed to be done. And then when we have time for the stuff that everyone's added to the documentation, then we'll do it later. Versus a lot of times, those are the more important things sometimes because the more important person took added them later. Um, I think that happens a lot where it's not necessarily the most important thing for the audience. It's usually the most important thing for person X in let's say the C-suite or wherever that wants to add it in. And it can happen, but unless you're doing everything by the book and by all the requirements, those take. The reason why they take forever to get done. Um, that's kind of the benefit of it because then everything will get done. Um, that's required.
Yeah, yeah, but we've seen the way that was not done well either. So it's always you need to have a right balance, and also that's not something that AI can do. Like having the right balance and then figuring out and determining what's the right balance is probably like where your human touch, or like senior
Yeah.
tech lead or like a C-suite tech person, can actually come in to judge, and then making sure that they make the decisions. Because like also the AI, they don't make decisions; they give you information. So,
Yeah. All right. I got nothing else.
but
It's true.
anyway, so what are we departing with? Like, did you even drink that much? I only drank like very little bit.
Half.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. The goal isn't to get drunk. It's just to kind of have a
Just
legitimate
to enjoy the beer or the wine.
wine. All right. Cool. Well then, till next time.
Till next time.
Bye.